All right. Thanks everyone. Welcome to this podcast. Today we are doing an episode on product management. I have wonderful people here. Thanks a lot for joining me on a Sunday afternoon. You've traveled from across Bangalore, and so I really appreciate this intent of helping others. Right, a lot of people again reach out to me for help around career choices, making more informed decisions. Right, and the goal of this podcast is to help them with that. Usually, what we see is that people's decisions are driven by peer influence. Especially in B schools, they see one of their friends, or let's say there's a lot of hype around consulting, investment banking, even product nowadays, and they just follow that trend. But now with this podcast, the goal is to help people with more awareness, right? People will be able to take their own decisions. Without further delay, let me quickly introduce you to Sonia, Shashank and Jay. So Jay, very quick introductions, then I'll allow everyone to introduce themselves. So Jay has been a SaaS veteran, about 18-20 years in the industry. He leads product at Hyperverge. Shashank has been building products he was a group PM at Flipkart, spent more than 10 years and now is the director of product at Allen Digital. And Sonia has built products in the US, and I am very happy to also mention that she was a Forbes 30 under 30 in consumer tech, and she was the youngest director at Acko. Currently she heads product at Narayana One Health. I'll introduce myself very briefly, then all of you can follow, right? Apart from whatever I mentioned. So yeah, I am, like Shashank, I am an IIT Ropar graduate, and I'm working in Udaan since the last 2 years now. And I'm working in the product team at Udaan Capital, which is the lending arm of Udaan. So we lend to businesses across India, SMBs across India, and not only the ones who are buying from Udaan. So Udaan itself is a B2B e-commerce company. So there are two verticals within Udaan Capital. People buying from Udaan, we lend to them, and people who are not buying from Udaan, we lend to them as well. And that's a quick introduction. I did a 6 months internship at Hyperverge, and that's how I know Jay. Right? And yeah, over to you, Sonia, and then maybe others can follow for a quick introduction.
Yeah, what do you want me to add? I'm Sonia. I'm American originally, which you can hear in my voice. I'm the daughter of doctors from India. So I grew up in the US, and basically in college I became interested in the role of technology in improving people's lives, and especially in emerging markets. So I had a little bit of experience in India, had done some research in India, and so I was interested in coming to a place like India where I felt like I could have more impact. So the first thing I wanted to do though was learn a little bit from the best tech companies in the US about how they build products, decide to build products, and how they eventually scale those across different markets. So I started my career at McKinsey in Silicon Valley, where I exclusively served different tech companies, software companies, all different types, some B2B that I've been there for a long time, some of the big B2C brands that you would have interacted with. Had a great exposure there, did a lot of work on AI as well. And then after that was interested in branching out, actually was interested in moving to India, wasn't finding the right opportunity. So I joined Google X for a little bit, doing strategy there. And then I felt like, okay, strategy was fun and interesting, but maybe not what I wanted to do, which I'm happy to talk more about. And so I wanted to get out of consulting, ended up joining a team at Apple that was looking to define Apple's strategy in healthcare, which is called Health Strategic Initiatives. There I launched 2 products, one with Aetna Insurance in the US, one in Singapore, which I can talk more about. Each have a couple 100,000 users, very high engagement for health tech. And then after that, I was still interested in moving to India. So I was looking for the right opportunity and ended up joining Acko in 2020 and was leading health insurance product there. So both on B2B and on B2C, and helped launch the product you guys have probably seen the ads for with Munabai there. So so I was there for 3 years. I just left at the end of last year and joined Narayana in January. We're doing some really interesting stuff, putting together insurance, a hospital, and healthcare services, which I'm happy to talk more about.
Quick check there, quick question. How did you pull off shifting during the COVID time, shifting back to India?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so first of all, the funny thing is everyone always says shifting back. And actually, for me, it was just a shift. I never actually lived in India before. I'd only done like a few months at a time. So it was my first full-time move to India. Yeah, I mean, I think a couple things. One is obviously I connected with a lot of people online, and people were very generous to give me time online, you know, between VCs, other operators, founders, and talk to me, tell me about what the market was like. So I think finding the opportunities was pretty easy to do. You know, I just took a lot of video calls overnight in the US. In terms of like coming here and adjusting, I had a few friends that lived here. So that really helped me settle in even during COVID.
Got it. Yes.
Cool. So I'm Shashank. So I'm first batch of IT robot, as same as Ashwin, and so again for me the life has been 0 to 1. To be very honest, starting from the college, it was the first batch, no campus, no nothing. First year in IT Delhi, and then we shifted to our own campus, and we had to set up everything from scratch. So from that perspective, I feel like the life has been 0 to 1, and then building the whole college from scratch, like setting up the labs yourself, deciding the specs, getting the first lathe machine, and all those things, everything mechanical. So has always been interested in building stuff. So straight out of college, first company Flipkart happened. Fortunately that Flipkart happened, and then again they were building something. So again 0 to 1 journey, been there for almost 10 years, have more across multiple segments again. I've worked in the B2B space, B2B products like retail and supply chain, and everything from scratch, setting up individual warehouses, like setting up the large business for Flipkart. Again, everything from scratch, coming to retail when it was shut down again in Flipkart.
Mm-hmm.
After that marketplace strategy, then again starting from scratch for Flipkart again, doing for four and a half years. And then joining the fintech. So have worked and got the chance to work in fintech and insurance tech actually. So I was heading the insurance division for Flipkart, so the idea essentially is, again, I like doing the fintech on that front. That's exciting space to be in India for really being that almost like 100 billion odd order crowd which exists and credit deprived, to be very honest, right? And penetration is like really low. And to building a payments product like buy now pay later, right? Buy now pay later is again a very big thing in India, and having a very decent double size million odd numbers from Flipkart perspective, and it's again a very good tool, and saw very good adoption, to be very honest, and taking heading that the whole growth acquisition part of the buy now pay later function, and taking it from that a very single digit million order to a double digit million order sort of a number. That was a really exciting journey for me. And after that, again, almost for 10 years in commerce, I felt like enough for me at least, it was like enough of commerce, to be very honest, and wanted to actually impact something outside commerce. And again, for me the two space sounded really well. One is health tech, to be very honest, and that's why, since I was in insurance, I understood that a lot of things can happen in health tech. Another was education tech. So things happened great in 2020, not to the best of ways that we expected. So got an opportunity in education from that per se, and I feel that the next 10 years is for health and insurance, at least in India, given that the way things are and the way people actually really need the need of it, right? A teacher doesn't exist, the good quality of teachers are not available. And frankly, I've faced that myself in my college itself, like where it was a new college, right? Getting the new, good professor has a huge amount of dependency itself from IIT Delhi. So felt like it's a good space to be in, and again, given that the way space was getting disrupted for all the negative feelings, in my head it's a very nice place to be in at this point of time. And furthermore, again, last 1 year have been really exciting from the Gen A perspective, right? And Gen A actually is going to open a lot of great things, and we ourselves are experimenting a lot on Gen A and all those things, and we figured out, okay, a lot of limitations of Gen A, and the things which looks the next 5-year time frame from Gen AI on all this standpoint really actually I will be just like I'm really thrilled around those lines because things can happen in terms of AI companion or in terms of VR or AR tech, right? In terms of the students or teachers which are sitting in their pools apart at 3,000, 4,000 odd kilometers out there, and they can really feel themselves and really feel connected. So those kind of stuff can really happen, and that's a whole 1 year, at least starting of 1 year journey has been really not even scratching the surface, to be very honest, on the education side. And yep, so that's very brief journey about me.
Understood. 3 key takeaways. I think one is a lot of 0 to 1 happened in your journey, specifically starting from the IIT Ropar first batch. We've been hearing for Jay and Sonia. In college, we've been hearing about the challenges the first batch faced while setting up college. So we've been hearing a lot of stories around that. I think thankful to you for that. A lot of things became easy for us because of that. And second, I think you mentioned BNPL. There was very, very high adoption at Flipkart, which shows a lot of trust people have in Flipkart itself, right? That's one of the other key takeaways, I think, is in EdTech. Now, Alan, when we think of Alan, we think of it as a traditional kind of organization, right? And within Alan Digital, you're talking about Gen AI, which shows the kind of, and maybe you can elaborate on it more, shows the kind of openness to new technologies traditional organizations also have, right? So if you can elaborate on that.
So basically, if you see, right, again, talking a bit about Alan has been a traditional for the last 35 years.
Yeah.
And actually, so again, sometimes people say that COVID is a bad thing which has happened. At least in my head, for education, that's the best thing which is happening out there. Given that the fact that people have been pushed to go out of that mindset of education is not just about studying offline, or the best possible education can happen when the teacher is in front of me and then I can learn the things around it. So in my head, the COVID is the best thing which happened with at tech, to be very honest. We didn't took out the best of fullest. Again, the time frame is about that, the way the kind of technology which had emerged at that point of time. But in last 1 year, the way AI and all the technology has emerged out, right, it has given that the whole conversational bit of it, right? Without a teacher, I can still talk to a machine. And that machine can really help me in moving the things further and further on. And it started probably from a very generic LLM models, but now the things which are happening on top of it, right, like creating a very multi-banded sort of a model on top of it, which very focuses on, okay, how do I crack IIT? So IIT has been the exam, right? Even let's say GPT-4 has not been a great accuracy or part of it. But now once you start putting a lot of your custom and fine-tuned model on top of it, it opens up a lot of things. And you can just similarly talk about those stuff in terms of health tech, right? I was actually talking to someone in Acko, to be very honest, and he was telling that they were trying to solve some less than 8 minutes of claims registration. Again, that's again why AI. So a lot of great things which when we start using the AI as a base model, which is GPTs or Cloud or Gemini, or there are multiple actually LLM models available out there in the market. When you start putting their own custom models and you start using the whole potential of that, right, that whole new set of world start getting open up on that front. And yes, in education, right, especially to be very honest, the things are like, even let's say in our the best of school, right, the quality, if we see, right, is 1:40 is a student to teacher ratio. In when you talk about, let's say, going outside the school, right, let's say coaching centers or around those front, right, the number goes to as high as 200, right? And let's say in online setup, the number, because again it's a business at the end of the day, number goes as high as 500. So in those kind of setup, right, education is going to actually really make, let's say when you talk about AI companion on that front, it is going to be that 1:40, let's say if I compare to the outside traditional setup, it is going to be 1:1. And that's something very powerful. So if you get a person, a system who is like a person and it's able to help you out in 1:1 way, in not just in the educational setup, but also in the motivational setup, it's very powerful. So that's where I feel ki AI is going to help. And let's say if we club with, let's say Meta's VR or AR tech, or let's say Apple's the Vision Pro sort of a tech, it's an initial starts, right? If that goes 5 years, 7 years down the line, it's going to be enormous. I'm sitting in my this and I can see, let's say Ashwin sitting and I can just talk to him now. Jay is, let's say, sitting on a TV right now, Jay physically is present. And we have seen those examples in IPL actually. So those technologies can be really, really powerful. At least in education, right, that's like too much powerful. I'm not sure how it will go into the health tech sector, to be very honest, but education, AR, VR plus AI, all three combined, it's going to actually transform the industry in a similar fashion which UPI has done for financial commerce play. To be very honest in my head.
And one interesting thing, I know you looked for people with a diversity of background, but actually both of us ended up at offline businesses that are trying to become more digital, right? And even if you look at both of our businesses, they both have AI teams. Like at NH, we also have an AI team and an AI capability. So it's amazing how quickly the technology is spreading, and healthcare is a similar problem where there's not enough doctors, there's a lot of patients. So how do you make sure that you can give out personalized care? And that's something where AI can have a lot of impact.
Yeah, healthcare and edtech companies are typically, not edtech companies, educational institutions are typically seen as people who, let's say, have some friction in adopting new technologies, and I think COVID has been a great facilitator that ways. On to Jay, right? Jay, why don't you introduce yourself?
It was great hearing Sonia and Shashank from here and the kind of experience they bring in. I hope I am audible, Ashwin.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Okay. So I am Jed Ambani, and I've been. I started my career, after completing my engineering from NIT Raipur in the 2004 timeframe. I joined a startup called Brain Visa Technologies. Brain Visa was like a startup, 40 people startup when I joined them. The problem which we were solving for was in this space of edtech, but more of a B2B edtech. In those days, there was no term such as called edtech. When I see, look at in the retrospect, we realize that it was edtech. Back then, we were just solving problem for the remote learning. Most of the students in the US, were working or doing part-time jobs, or there's a lot of homeschooling culture where they would want to access the courses. So at Brain Visa, we built a platform where it was easier to launch the courses, easier to build the content on the top of that platform and quickly take it to the market. And it was a simple platform where university professors would come online, they'll create their schedules, and there was a timetable system within that where students can book the lessons. It was and then work with the teacher. So it was more of a academic side of the things which we were focusing. And from a B2C perspective, that is where a student comes and want to book the session, they can also book it. So it was a very simple, as I said. Now we see edtech and all. So I worked with Brain Visa. It was a startup, so I got an opportunity to work on various aspects. Again, I'm talking about an era where most of the SaaS stuff was, happening in the Valley. The product management as a term was coined in the Valley, not in India. So from 2004 to 2007, got an opportunity to work on the platform, work on the team side of the things. We scaled Brain Visa from 40 to close to 400 people, and with 6 offices across the globe. It was in 2007 when I decided, right, and then Brain Visa was, acquired by Indicom Global Learning, and it was a logical pause for me to work. Like after working in a startup across all the spectrum, right from business analysis, from development side of the things, and bit of pre-sales and bit of product management, I decided to go for my higher education. Then, I joined the MBA at NMIMS, did my 2 years of masters in marketing. And after completing my masters, I joined a company called Out of Home Media, which are more into digital ads. Again, it was a thing of its own. 2009 was a time when there was a lot of malls and the retail revolution was happening in India. So the idea was that how do you reach the customer at the various touch points? Internet was not that. GeoEffect happened in 2014, but prior to that, reaching the customers was very difficult, right? So there were innovative ways through which you have to reach the customer. So in terms of there is a network of gyms and there's a network of schools. The idea was to identify your audience based on the product what you are getting, and then position yourself in those networks. So that's that's the the problem which we solved in Out of Home Media. Again, building the digital platform for the allocation of the media and identifying the channels where a product can meet the target customer. It was interesting, but my traditional background of B2B SaaS, was I got a calling from Wipro, and then I decided to switch from out of home media's brief stint of almost a year to Wipro. With Wipro, I joined Integrated Cloud Group, also known as ICG, back then. And during that time, the likes of Salesforce, Oracle, NetSuite, which are very common names today, were just like revving up in the market, right? We're a very new concept of Salesforce. So Wipro, in their professional services team, they were setting up these verticals of cloud related enterprise platforms. So I became part of that. And then with Wipro, I got an opportunity to work on a lot of custom products and then launch them in the US, largely in the US, UK, and South America. So in those 4 years, worked on the enterprise platforms like NetSuite, Salesforce, Oracle, JD Edwards, and then the idea was to solve the problem for in the space of supply chain, largely supply chain and CRM. Then, after completing my 4 year stint in Wipro, I joined another startup. So I joined Fulcrum Digital, which is based out of New Jersey, and with offices in the UK and in India. And in Fulcrum, because it was a small and medium enterprise, we were building standalone products for largely education in the supply chain. So there I got an opportunity to launch a platform around edtech, largely meant for universities in the UK and the US. And then I also got an opportunity to build a product platform for an insurance firm in India, which was a joint venture between a UK firm and India First Life Insurance. Then around 2016, again, there also I got an opportunity to launch products in the UK and in the US. 2016, I was based in the UK. Then I decided to come to India and joined a company called iCertis. iCertis was one of the earliest.
Just to cut you there, why did you decide to move back to India from UK at that point?
It was a family thing, being the only son, in India brings a different flavor altogether to your personal life. And so, yeah, I was doing well in the UK, but the family constraints were there that, I had to be in India, after that. So took a call. It was a personal call. Left UK, came to India, and then joined iCertis. Now, iCertis was solving for contract management. So the idea was, back then there was a lot of DocuSign and document management, B2B SaaS, which was happening. And the idea of iCertis was very novel in that sense, because people were talking about documents in the SharePoint. Microsoft is already, some sort of a platform in place, but it was not considered as, contract management, so to say. Some of the bespoke solutions were available, but they were not building at scale. So iCertis zoned on this problem of contract management, and then honed on to it. So during my time at iCertis, we built for HR as a vertical, we built for pharma as a vertical, we built for auto as a vertical. So got an opportunity to solve the problems with regards to the contract management for folks in the Europe. My last assignment was in Germany with iCertis. Prior to that, got an opportunity to work with pharma companies in the East Coast also with iCertis. Close to 3.5 years in iCertis, got an opportunity, as I said, to work in the HR space, largely because B2B SaaS is a horizontal, right? When you're building platform, it can be customized for different verticals at the same time by keeping the foundation layer same. So the core layer, we created this of contract management, and then after that, we started verticalizing it for different verticals. So there, it was HR, largely pharma. And then, in the end, it was supply chain for telecom, for an auto major in the Germany. So after that, like 2019, again, thought that, I have to do something else. Now it's been like too much of a platform, and it was more of a RegTech kind of thing. So wanted to take fintech was evolving in India a lot. Then got an opportunity because coming from B2B SaaS, largely worked in the US and in the Western space. Got an opportunity to work with Avalara. Avalara is a tax compliance major in the US, and they've acquired a couple of startups in the UK also. So the problem of we were solving at Avalara was, how do you make taxes less taxing is like, because filing taxes in the US, the complexity is very high. We are fortunate to be in India where even though the taxes, the tax rates are now very high, but the filing of the taxes is quite simplified, right? But in the US, because every state and every product has got a different taxes in the place. It's very difficult to do it manually. So Avalara, over a period of time, has built a very sophisticated platform based on the product, based on the geography, and based upon the kind of the ingredients of the product, you can actually set up the taxes. My key role was to build platform integration products where I worked on marketplaces such as marketplaces like Amazon, Shopify, BigCommerce, and on the ERP side again, holding on to my background of Salesforce, NetSuite, got an opportunity to build platform integration products for these platforms with Avalara. So close to 15 to 20 products which were launched in that 2.5 year stint of Avalara. And then I decided, now that I was in fintech and I was enjoying it, started to work with Hyperverge. So at Hyperverge, what we are solving for is trust. It is, to put it simply, it is KYC, KYB. But there is more to it, because the idea is that when people are transacting with each other, if they trust each other, if you're able to establish trust, then the accessibility of the transaction increases, right? So how do you solve for that with the help of technology? Hyperverge is a deep tech platform, a deep tech company. Started off from IIT Madras, and since then until today, we have leveraged this core strength of artificial intelligence. I mean, people are talking about Gen AI and artificial intelligence now, but Hyperverge has been in this space for almost 8+ years, and that's largely the product portfolio is into solving for trust, which means that right from when a customer onboards to a B2B customer landscape in the fintech, how do you verify if Ashwin is the same Ashwin what he's claiming to be? And then once Ashwin is in the ecosystem, how do you ensure a continuous monitoring that the transactions what Ashwin is going to perform are in compliance with the regulatory laws and the law of the land. So that's in a nutshell my career around B2B SaaS, and last close to 8 years in the RegTech and FinTech space.
Perfect, super interesting. And as you can see, he has been I would not be wrong in calling him a B2B SaaS veteran. He's spent about 18 years in B2B SaaS, so I think
definitely not nutshell.
Yeah.
It's quite elaborate actually.
Yeah. Right now, India has about 20,000 product managers, right? And although millions of people want to get into it, so now shifting gears to product management. How would you very briefly maybe define what a product manager does, or who's a product manager, right? Very briefly, basis your experience. There's no right or wrong here, but whatever you've seen, whatever you think of yourself, right, as a product manager, whoever wants to start.
I can start. I've been doing this a lot at work recently because a lot of people haven't worked with product managers before. So explaining what does a PM do. So to me, and I think actually Vish, who's the CTO of Acko, said this and it really resonated with me. Product manager is a problem solver, basically. So our job is to take a business priority, understand what is your main challenges to achieving that priority, and come up with the right solution to that. Typically, that solution has a technology component to it, because if you have a problem and it's a big problem that someone can't just solve themselves, it usually needs a big solution or a systematic solution. And so usually technology helps bring a system-wide solution. But there's many times that PMs are picking up problems that have nothing to do with technology, or it turns out that the right solution isn't something that you have to build that's available off the shelf, or it just requires people working together in a different way. And PMs can focus on solving that too. So identifying the biggest problems in the business, often using customer insights, data insights, and then solving those problems with systematic solutions is how I would define a product manager.
Yeah.
So let me just go through a little back, right? It was when I started product management for approximately around 2013, sort of, and at that point of time, I don't think so in India, at least, the product management craze existed. So I'm probably one of the fortunate enough to have little kind of experimentation around it, where India was still growing in the tech part of it, and product manager were a very rare commodity or a non-existent commodity. There were a set of people existed in the ecosystem, and they were trying to solve problems. So for me, as again Sonia rightly pointed out, okay, again it was always key. There are certain problems which are visible. Plus, other aspect also comes out to be from this that a lot of times customer also don't know what problem they may like to other person to solve, and that's where the key inside the product management at times comes into play. So whenever you talk to any person, at least in my overall 10 plus years of career, right, what I have at least seen that whenever you talk to anyone, they always gives a solution. And at times a good product manager, great product managers, key insights come to perspective that this is the problem that a person is talking about. What he's talking about is symptoms. It's not the real problem, it's just a symptom. So as you, again, in health especially, people tell you, this is the symptom I'm facing. And a good doctor, a great doctor basically figures out, no, this is the symptom and these are the core problems around it, right? So in the sense, it's very similar, right? When you talk about diagnostic perspective, a great product manager is a great diagnostician of the problem and problem identification. And be it a business problem or a consumer problem. It can be on any field around that, but a great product manager figures out that, and that's where when I at least started my career, I was just happy in doing that. This is the problem which, or the symptom people are telling about. Oh, this is not the problem, and this is something which exists and nobody is able to identify that. And I was happy in solving that. So for me, technology just became an aid to it.
Yeah.
Because technology helped in probably reaching out or kind of solving that particular problem at much larger scale. And another great thing which at least I felt what product manager is, even if you don't be around, right, the problem will be solved. It's not just you have to be there. A lot of times non-tech problems are not solved fully because people leave. It's a very people dependent sort of a thing, and product managers are great again in doing those things. Okay, you are not there, you left the organization, now things will still work out the similar because you have solved the problem in such a beautiful manner and a scalable manner that it's going to be in auto run mode. So again, the whole idea is for me it was always like that. Okay, figure out the great problem which anyone will have, and then just solve the problem at scale. Now technology is one of the means to solve it. It can be, as again I pointed out, it may be an off-the-shelf product available, or just fixing the processes around it. Ashwin, you should talk to me in that way, or Jay should talk to me in that way, and this problem will get fixed. So figuring out the problem and just solve the problem at scale, and just leave, and the things will work out fine.
Right.
So that's for me is product management, to be very honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jay, how would you define product management?
I mean, I'm largely aligned with what both of them have said. But now when I look back as product management, right, as a role, if you ask me, it varies from organization to organization. Like I was fortunate enough to work with startups, IPO firms, and publicly listed companies. Was fortunate enough to be part of product teams as big as just product teams itself of 300 product managers. So it varies from organization to organization, but the thread which has been common throughout my experience, which I have seen in product managers, and they were not even product managers, right? They were doing the job of product manager. They might have been a solution architect also.
Yeah.
Product management is just a title. Looking back, if I look at the things, so three factors or qualities which largely stand out for me. One is identifying the problem that needs to be solved. Right? That's therefore the identification is very important because if you directly, because being engineers, right, we are very first principle. You just go and start solving the problem. Right? That's where I would say I've seen a differentiation occurs where you actually think about the problem, whether it needs a solution or not. Not everything needs to be solved. Right? Sometimes status quo, is the best best place or best possibility which is there. So people who are able to identify the problem that needs to be solved, finding an effective way to solve the problem. effective and efficient because resources are constrained. So in a bigger company, you might have luxury of having engineering bandwidth, but as the scale of the organization is reducing, then the engineering is the most costly resources which we have available at our disposal. So identification of the problem, solving effectively and efficiently, figuring out the ways, these are the two important qualities or an individual, when I look at the product manager. And then solving at scale, right? Because if you are building something, if you're solving, it should not need not to be a patchwork. I've largely worked with platforms, right? Instead of just individual products, and with platforms is that whatever you seed into the platform, the successive generations have to live with it, right? So it's a conglomeration of multiple products working in cohesion and in symphony to give you an end-to-end result, right? So that ability to think through holistically on creating impact at scale is one. So if you club them all together, the boundary condition which I place around these four qualities is that ability to get the job done cross-functionally. Right? So these four qualities, anyone who has got this quality is a product manager to me. They might not be holding the title of product manager, but if you see in small setups, so I come from a business family, right? Where my cousins are also running their own business, and when I look at them, the way they are solving the problem, they might not have a vocabulary for that, but they're also getting the job done, creating impact at scale. They are also product managers. Right?
Yeah.
So, if you look at the characters of an individual in an organization setup, when they're having these 4 or 5 qualities which I just mentioned, is a product manager to me.
Right. No, really loved it. I think even before 2014 or 2013, people were solving problems always, right? So maybe much earlier than in India. I think Google started the APM program around 2004 or I'm not sure, right? So sometime around that point. So I think in India it came very late, starting with Flipkart's product management around 2014, I believe.
I guess around 2014, Flipkart launched the APM program.
Yeah.
It's very similar to Google's one. It
Google
was actually
APM.
inspired by Google.
Precisely.
So yeah, we used to go to IITs and hire people, and then there were 2 years of program, and then the whole idea is to train people to become great product managers in the future. Actually, really worked out really well. So after 2014 onwards, a lot of people have gone out of, and I see a lot of those set of folks, right, spread across the globe, and at some sense it feels so proud, to be very honest. Yes, we were able to kind of nurture that particular era of the people who came and became the part of what we call the Flipkart mafia in general at times. But yeah, it was great, to be very honest.
Yeah. No, in the product ecosystem, just to add upon that, the Flipkart APM program is highly coveted because I come from that kind of a college, right? We used to really admire people who entered this program, and they used to visit 7-8 IITs and used to hire 1 or 2 people from every IIT, right? I remember one of the years they hired only 3 people across all 7 IITs. And then it's a rotational program, 2 years, one year in one team, second year in the other team. Then after APM 1, APM 2, they graduate to become a PM. A lot of people then pursue startups, other career options, but then it's a very, very steep learning curve that's there in the program. On a similar note, what motivated you to choose product? Like, how did you get into product? Was it a function of serendipity, opportunity, peer influence, anything, right? How did you get into product? Shashank, on similar line, because we've been talking about Flipkart, right? You joined as a management trainee, right? Just to set the context.
Yeah.
Now, coming to the question, what motivated you to?
So again, that's where I will actually relate with Jay, right? So when I joined, I was actually solving problems.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, as again Jay mentioned, tech, somehow it happened, right? We used to think from tech perspective. And there were a lot of problems that we were trying to solve, at least let's say with dev and product manager of that time, right? This needs tech, or this can be solved via tech, right? And eventually you are kind of coming up with the solutions, and that they have to be implemented in the form of a technology. So that's where, for me, it was very natural, to be very honest, because I have been doing that for a year almost, and then it became very natural to get transitioned into that particular front. And then again in 2013 plus end of 13th, I said ki okay, I was working with some head of product over at that point of time, and I asked her ki okay. She's like, you are doing this. What actually I want, let's say, one of my reportees to or one of my product manager to be doing it. Why don't you join my team? So it was that kind of a transition, and I like, okay, I like this doing it. It's more not like, again, to the very point which Jay mentioned, right? Ki, there was no title, to be very honest, for the management trainee. Management trainee is a very generic title which when you join a company you are given, right? So it was no title, but I was just doing that particular thing. And when I said, Kier, I want to kind of officially with the title want to do it, the person said, yeah, you are already doing it, why don't you join my team? And I'll give you the title. So for me, it happened in that way, to be very honest. And I like, so I would have been one of the fortunate ones who said, haan, chalo yaar, I got that opportunity to just get into it and start to solve for it. And yes, eventually I got a very, let's say, title also. And hence that journey began for me, to be very honest. So yeah, happening accidentally, I will say. But yeah, a good accident happened in my career, to be very honest. So yeah.
Understood. How about you, Sonia? You started with McKinsey, I believe.
Yeah, so maybe I'll start from college. So basically, I joined a college in Washington, D.C. that's very famous for public policy. So I basically was like, okay, I want to help people. Like, I'm going to go into government. And then I got there and was like, okay, government is not really helping people that much right now. So I guess I'm not going to do that. But what I fell in love with or became fascinated by was technology. I felt like, okay, look at, billions of people have cell phones and that's changed their entire life. Or if you look at any kind of advancement as a technology, like think about ORS. That sounds so simple. Like in India, everybody knows what it is, right? Like ORS is an amazing technology. It saves millions of people every year. That's so inspiring that you can come up with one idea and that idea can really uplift millions or billions of people. So that's what I became interested in. And I was like, okay, technology is really cool. Semiconductors are amazing that we came up with semiconductors. How do I get into this field? And I'm a public policy background. So I couldn't really become an engineer at that time. Product manager jobs were still very competitive in Silicon Valley. You mostly had to be an engineer, and there wasn't that many APM programs. Like Google had one, Facebook's wasn't open at that time. Dropbox had a rotational program, but there wasn't that many programs. So I was like, okay, I can't be a PM. I definitely can't be an engineer. Sales doesn't sound like my thing. So what can I possibly do? So I was like, okay, I'll just try and get as close as possible. And that's how I ended up at McKinsey. And I felt like, okay, being in Silicon Valley, I'll have an opportunity to work on technology and ask questions about how technologies are built and how they're scaled. And then I got extremely lucky that at the time I joined McKinsey, a lot of tech companies were waking up and saying, hey, we used to say that we don't like consultants, but now we realize why we need them because we've reached a scale where we actually realize that there's some competencies that we don't have or we want the speed that a consulting firm offers or whatever it may be. So I got really lucky that at the time I joined, I had a really supportive mentor who was leading a lot of the James Manika, who's amazing, and he's at Google now. And he was leading a lot of the firm's technology work, so I got to work on a lot of his projects, got to do a lot of tech work. And then basically I was having fun, and I think I was working on really big problems for businesses. Like, should I launch this product? Should I invest in this area? How do I restructure my product management org? So really, really cool problems to be working on. And I still kind of felt bored. I was like, this is great. It's very intellectual, but I'm not feeling attached to the work that I'm doing, basically in consulting. And then I got this opportunity at Google. So I was there for 4 months. And you basically can't do cooler strategy work than what I was doing. Basically, I was paid to go to work and ask, what can Google do that's going to change the world? And evaluate opportunities for that. So you couldn't have been doing anything cooler than that. And I still kind of thought it was boring. So I was like, okay, I think consulting or strategy is the problem. I just don't feel that attached to my work, because at the end of the day, my work was a bunch of PowerPoint slides. And then I don't know what happens after that. Then I'm done with the project. So I felt like I wanted something with more ownership. I had been chief of staff of a nonprofit before, so I thought that, okay, being something more operational, more closer to owning something is something I wanted to do. And I want to be in technology. That's kind of where I started. So I actually was evaluating a role in Hyderabad with Google X, actually not in Hyderabad, it was in Vijayawada, doing operations, and that was in technology. And then this Apple role kind of fell into my lap because a mentor of mine was like, hey, I'm looking for a product manager. You've worked with a bunch of product managers, probably you can do it. You've seen it at Google, you've seen it at other companies. So those were the two opportunities. And many other people were like, you should take this Apple opportunity. It's hard to become a PM, and this is really, really cool, and you'll learn from a place that knows how to ship products. So that's how I ended up taking it.
At that point, you didn't idealize, let's say, a product management career, or you didn't know a lot about it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I had worked with, so at Google, product managers are very powerful. It's a very central org to Google. So I could see at Google that they were, driving a lot of the decisions, working on a lot of the hardest problems, having a lot of the ownership. So I could see that firsthand, and I would work with a lot of PMs at Google. So I felt like, okay, that was a cool place to be. But honestly, that was 2017. I really wanted to move to India. I was like, I want to move to India. I know I want to do this. I know I can do it. And so there was this one opportunity with Google to move to India. So part of me really wanted to take it, but even my partner at the time who was living in India called me and was like, this Apple job is too good to give up. You need to take this. And that's how I ended up in product management. And I'm so happy that I did. Yeah.
Got it. Quick follow-up there. Which product were you working on in Apple?
Yeah, so actually my org at Apple was also, so it's funny, I've done a lot of 0 to 1 at big companies somehow. So basically, when I joined this org at Apple, I was the first PM in the org. We were actually a special project at the time. So we were like completely like in an unmarked building, like nobody knew that we existed. But basically the org was looking at, okay, Apple has the Apple Watch. They, Tim had come out and said, hey, health is going to be a big part of Apple for the years to come. And we were looking at, okay, how can we help partner with other healthcare organizations to deliver value with Apple? And how can we actually fulfill that promise of Apple will make you healthier? So that's what we were exploring. And so the way we were exploring it was by launching apps typically, which were in partnership with other healthcare organizations. So my org ended up launching an app with Aetna Insurance, where that was my first app that I worked on, where basically we were helping Aetna reach out to their customers and promote healthy behaviors. Because, I mean, we've all been in insurance, so I'm sure you guys have lived this as well. Many customers don't want to hear from their insurance company, okay? When you buy insurance, you like, best case scenario, buy it and forget about it. Worst case scenario, you're like, my insurance company sucks. I don't like insurers at all. And in the US, there's really negative sentiment against insurance companies. So one of the things that they would struggle with is insurance company actually wants you to become healthier. So Aetna Insurance, as an insurer, they're the only people that make money when people become healthy. If you look at healthcare as an ecosystem, everyone makes money when you're sick, except the insurance company. So Aetna was saying, hey, okay, I want my patients to become healthier. My patients want to become healthier. Members, they call them members. And then they would develop these sophisticated models that would say, hey, here's actually what Shashank can do tomorrow to start becoming healthier, whether that's go for a preventative checkup, pick up his medication, whatever it may be. So they would have these models that said, hey, I know exactly what makes you healthy. I know that I want you to be healthier, but I can't reach out to you to even tell you what it is that will make you healthier because you don't want to hear from me. So they would send out mails, like physical postal mails. They would send out emails and people would not listen to them. People don't download their app. So what we were solving was, okay, let's make an app that's so engaging and fun that people are looking at it and actually reading your messages about what's going to make them healthy and changing their behavior accordingly to invest in preventative health. So that's what we did with Aetna Insurance. We had super high engagement. It's very hard to get engagement in health apps, and we had very, very good engagement for the first app. And then the Singaporean government reached out, and I ended up driving a product with the Singaporean government, which was for the whole country of Singapore, where we did a very similar thing. It was helping Singaporeans get engaged with their health. I'm really proud of that product. It was my baby. I was like one product manager, 6 designers, and it has like really awesome feedback from customers. There's like a bunch of blogs and stuff about it online. So that's what I launched it at.
Why didn't you share some of them? I'll put them in the video description.
Yeah, sure. There's like a whole Facebook group of people like trying to back derive my model for like the payouts. It's a rewards app. So I'll share some links. Yeah.
Sure. Jay, how about you? What got you into product management?
I don't know. I mean, it just happened to me. That's the way I look at it. Product management happened to me in the sense that I've always been like, as I said, come from a business family. And the idea was always to build something that, it sustains the unit economics of whatever we build or take it to the market has to be positive. So with that idea, I've been in the product as long as I can go back in my career. Yeah, the formalization of what I was doing all this while started happening from 2014 onwards, because there was no word for that. Right? You are doing business analysis, you are doing program management, you are doing client engagement, everything that moves needle on the ground, right? You are getting your hands dirty, move the things, manage teams. Everything was happening, but I did not know, what to call it, because you are not a project manager, you are not a program manager, you are not a sales guy, you're not a developer, but you're doing everything that takes to move the business, right? And lucky, as I said, I always used to be confused, I'm working on B2B SaaS. These are all product companies, but what's my role is? What should I call myself? And it just happened in 2014 onwards that, there was this thing of product management. And when I started relating what a product manager should do, that's the closest title I could come across, because I was doing everything. So that's how, the movement to product management happened. But I have been in products as long as I remember in my career.
Right. I think we've touched upon your entry into product management. Now, how does your day look like typically? Because you're leading multiple products and you've spent a lot of time in the industry. How does your typical day look like? Just want to understand this before we move into other aspects of your career trajectory.
So it depends, right? So again, at least for me, right, it's a whole bunch of mix, right? Because there's a IC sort of a role and there's a manager sort of a role. So it depends, right? Where you are actually want to put your more action, and typically varies from time to time and duration to duration. So let's say if we talk about a very typical product launch scenario where you are doing a lot of stakeholder management, and when you talk about a typical ideation phases, let's say where you are thinking of blue sky sort of a thinking you are doing, and that's where a lot of IC or researchers sort of a work start to kick in. And then there are appraisal cycle where the manager sort of works starts to kick in. So again, it depends upon the what time frame it is. But a typical, what I can put it is how a typical IC role operates in the product management, and how let's say a typical manager role operates. So for a typical IC, right, a lot of times where they are spending their time, at least what I suggest my product managers to do is a lot of research and ideation phase, right? Let's say if you have to for a whole day, you should at least spend 20 to 30% of your time in reading stuff or knowing what's happening in the market. That's for sure, because that's how you keep up with the technology and the ever-changing era which is happening nowadays. And then the remaining 30% is 100% or more than 30% actually, to be very honest, with the customers. Right. So you have to speak to the customers, whether it's a business customer or whether it's actual on ground or whether the consumer of the product. You have to definitely speak to them. Until you don't speak and understand whatever the launch that you have done or what launch you're planning in the future, that actually impacts a lot of your thinking, the way you are going to attack and how you're going to position. And then once you have spent the 60 to 65% of your time, right, you spend 20% of your time you're restructuring your thoughts. Because every day when you are doing this addition of, let's say, talking to the customer, or let's say doing external research, right, it changes. Like we always talk about strategy or roadmaps or product sense and all those things, right, every day. It's an ever-growing thing, and that's where another 10 to 15% of your time goes. You have to think about that thing, and then remaining 20 to 25% goes into the execution part of it. Now, this number, what is depicted, can typically change from day to day. But overall 50 to 60% of your time should definitely go in terms of talking to the customer and understanding the landscape, and remaining 40 to 50% should go in the execution phase and planning phase. So that typical IC role. When you talk about, let's say, a person who is, let's say, manager sort of a, what typically happens, the execution part, right, or the planning part generally is changed from a stakeholder management to a mentorship model. Mm-hmm. So you still have to, again, if you are thinking that, as a manager level, you cannot stop reading about the things or stop talking to a customer, stop being a product manager. So that 50% of part in my head never changes. You have to do that, keep on doing that. Because that you typically leave that sense and closeness to the core part of your job. But the remaining, the 50% of the execution, right? Because now there are set of, let's say, your people available for you to execute the stuff. Now you have to unblock them. And that's where the whole key part of stakeholder management and some bit of planning comes into play. And then the remaining part is the mentorship, because you have to tell them how to grow, how to do the stuff, right? And that's where typically for the manager changes on that front. So 50% more or less remain the same, and that's where the core of it, to be very honest. Again, that's where we always say, everywhere the core fundamental thread is to understand the customer's problems, insights, and what's happening in new trends in the market. So that 50% never changes for any product manager, no matter whether he's a entry level PM or he becomes, let's say, a head of product or even, let's say, CEO for a matter of fact, right? That 50% should never change, because that's what in my head makes a differentiation between a great forward thinker compared to, let's say, who is just trying to do a catch-up game.
Right. Key insight, I think. This 50% never changes, irrespective of your seniority in the chain, in the, let's say, the journey of a product manager. I think, and then also you talked about talking to customers, right? Very quickly, is there a particular means of doing this?
So again, reaching out to customer again depends upon which organization you are in. You are a typical startup, then you just simply go on the field and talk to the people, right? But if, let's say, a big company is run, then there are specific cells or there are specific units which are designed to take the voice of customer, and then you get involved into that. So either you talk to the customer directly 1:1, or you take the feedback, or you go through a lot of surveys and stuff like that. So again, there are multiple ways you can connect to consumer, right? In my typical scenario, you have to talk to the customer, not just reading out the surveys and all, because once you talk to the customer, so there are a lot of things which happens when you write it and when you talk, right? There's a difference which comes out to the play, because as I said, there is something people are telling you about symptoms, right? But when you talk to them, you are able to also figure out what the emotions are behind it, and that typically happens when you talk to them. So that's why. So typically for our startups, or let's say a 0 to 1 journey sort of a play, you definitely have to sit with the customer and figure it out. Oh, this is the thing that I have designed. What do you feel about it? Versus, let's say, a big company, you might have to call them, let's have a call, or let's have a group of people and let's have a discussion around it. So again, typical big companies sells, and small startups, typical, again, you are doing everything.
Yeah.
So you are on your own and you go and talk to the customer. Customers are frankly more than happy to talk. But I have never come across a customer who is like, I don't have time to talk. The baddest of the customer will give you the most amount of time.
Yeah. True. I think one interesting point here at Udaan, more, let's say, the more senior the person is, the closer that person is to the customer has been a trend I've seen at Udaan, which means the CEO would probably, let's say, on a daily basis interact with more number of customers. And here in Udaan Capital as well, the leadership team does the most number of customer visits. They're traveling to Mumbai, Indore, Bhopal, Hyderabad, and they talk to customers more often than, let's say, than me maybe, right? I'm, let's say, junior product manager. That's the kind of trend, although there's no fault in this of mine, but then there's this understanding that talking to customers is very, very important, and you'll be able to relate to their problems, understand their problems better, everything. I think that's there. Sonia, how about you? How does your day look like?
Yeah, so pretty similar. So I think there's largely 3 buckets of work, I would say. One is problem discovery. Okay, so that's kind of like the key work that Shashank was talking about, is the 50%. So that's understanding what problems exist out there for customers, for the business, whatever challenges are stopping you from meeting your goals, and then getting second level insights on that. What's the real challenge? What are people really facing? What is the core thing I need to solve in order to fix this problem? And then the third piece is understanding how big that problem is. And this to me is a very underrated part of product management. Like your stakeholders and your customers will come to you with 100 problems. Prioritization is your strategy. If you have to be, whatever you're saying yes to, you're saying no to something else. So you should be really clear that, hey, they told me 10 problems, but number 1 and number 2, that's actually the most impactful one. That if I spend 3 months working on that and just solving that, I've actually will solve the majority of the other issues. So I would put all of that, prioritization, customer insights, reading their data and understanding customer behavior or issues from there, talking to your stakeholders and understanding their main problems. I would put that in like the discovery bucket, basically problem discovery. Second bucket, I would say, is product execution. So that's what I think a lot of people think of as the product manager role, which is probably the thing that takes a lot of time, but is like least important in terms of developing your career, which is, working with engineers, making sure that they've understood what they need to do, QAing the product, writing your BRDs, all of the kind of like core bread and butter, like when you go online on LinkedIn, what people talk about a PM does is product execution. And then there's a third part, which it sounds a little silly, but it ends up taking a lot of your time, which is communicating about your work, basically. So there's a lot of stakeholders that need to understand, what is happening in the product. So you end up spending a lot of time with them, telling them about, okay, here's what I'm doing, here's how you link in, here's how your work is going to change, or collaborating together on, okay, how is the ops process going to change when I ship this product, or even talking to your engineers. They are product owners too. They want to know like what happened when I shipped something. Did it actually solve the problem? Did it not? So giving other people context basically on what is the problem we're solving, why, the output of all that discovery that you did, so that the execution can actually go well. So I think these three, I would say, are the main kinds of things that a PM ends up spending time on. I do think the share of where you spend your time changes in like two ways. One is I try to structure my team's work on a quarterly basis. For whatever reason, I've tried other models, but like quarterly seems to be a good amount of time where you can come up with an idea, explore it, ship it, and see the results in like a 1 or 2 quarter time frame. Works pretty well. So within the quarter, we'll have a part of the quarter where we're planning the quarter, like before we lock that roadmap. There we'll be doing a lot of problem discovery. I'm probably doing less on execution because we need to spend the time on discovery. After you've locked your roadmap for a little bit of time, then you really go heads down on execution, and you really focus on that. And then once you've launched, then it's a little more about communication. You'll be spending a little more time telling people, hey, this is what happened, and here's how it impacts your work. And then I do think also as you become a manager or become more senior, you end up spending a lot more time on problem discovery and communication than on product execution, roughly. There's a really good framework for this. Ravi Mehta's framework on skills, I think, is awesome. And he kind of talks about like by level how your core competencies change.
Understood. Noted. And how about you, Jay? How do you structure your day?
So largely, I've seen in last couple of years, my role has like evolved more on the strategic side of the things. But, it's largely into 4 categories where, it's all about building the team, coaching them, understanding them, unblocking them so that they can realize their full potential and, are set up for success. So a large amount of my mind space in last couple of years has gone into building those next line of leaders, right? Who can then go on and then create another set of leaders. So of whatever I have learned so far in my career through first principles or from talking to people through my experiments and failures, the idea has been to, how to ensure that they are not repeating the same things which I have done, right? So it's all about large piece of my time goes into building the team, right, solving their day-to-day problems, because as far as the product related issues, they are anyways are getting trained and they're getting they're solving it. But at an individual level, right, stakeholder management with partnership, with engineering teams, with customers, how to solve and approach a particular situation is more of a sometimes bit of tactical but more of a strategic. So team is where large amount of my time goes into in building and coaching them and mentoring them. Then after that, a substantial amount of time goes into the customers, right? Either by meeting them or constantly reviewing our NPS scores, quarterly business reviews. What is the feedback that customer is giving? Right? That's very important, even through virtually or by customer meeting or through any dated feedback which they have given us in the past. Third is in terms of the market, because we operate in a regulatory space, right? And regulator, every 5th or 6th or it's the changes are, the updates are coming every week, so to say. We have got one of the most dynamic regulators in the world when it comes to fintech, right? So you're keeping up with Genesis, as they say, right? You always have to be on your toes to figure out that if a regulation comes into how it will impact my existing product, what will be the impact on the customers, because the regulations are published at the same time, like to your customers and to you, right? How quickly you can decipher that information and calm the nerves of your customer, and at the same time, because sometimes it requires you to fundamentally change the product or tweak it, right? So that's market, around regulations, and also understanding what are the white spaces, right? Whenever any new regulation comes, it's an opportunity for us to build new products, because our existing, existing ground force is largely involved into execution. They usually in their day-to-day time do not get an opportunity to think through about innovation, because innovation is a separate subject altogether. Right? So constantly thinking about what are the new areas, what are the new products which we can build in our adjacent domains where we are operating, and that will create a value, right? Because at the end of the day, it's all about whatever you take to the market should be profitable. At least that's the theory. I have been quoted with. And then last but not the least is competition, because there's a lot to learn from the competition, the space where we operate, and the space where we are transitioning to. There are a set of platforms in the market where we aspire to be, but at the same time we have got a competition to deal with, right? They're also looking at us, and at Hyperverse we are market leaders when it comes to identity verification by the number of customers, or the number of transactions which we have processed so far. So there is an additional pressure, on our team, just to ensure that we are maintaining that pole position. So constantly studying the competition on what they are launching in the market, what is the impact on our suite of products, which are the geographies we should be going into, how each and every market, because we are looking forward to a geographic expansion, right? So every market is different, every regulator in that market is different. Studying about those, market, competition, customer, team is what, my day out work is.
Beautiful. I think a lot of key insights. First one, I think building the team, some of the things that you've mentioned really would help other people, other product managers or senior product managers watching this podcast. All right, coming to the next one, I need one example from each of you of the most interesting problem statement you've solved, and one example of any current problem statement you're solving, right? So two from each of you, and whoever wants to go first. One, the most interesting problem statement you've ever solved, right, around product or even in general. And second, any of the current problem statements you're working on. Why don't we start with Jay?
Well, there are many problems, over a period of time, which I was, fortunate enough to, tackle with. But somewhere in 2014-15, we were launching. So I was working with this startup called Fulcrum Digital, and we were launching, product, more of an edtech platform for academia and students together. The challenge there was that, in the Western countries, there is a heavy amount of consideration in compliance for whatever the platform you build. It has to be accessible to all. When I say accessible to all, it's not about caste, creed, or color. It's about building the platform for disabled people also, right? So you have to meet certain guidelines. Whatever the learning management system you have built, they should be able to access it, right? And it's very so, because if you are fortunate enough to be able, right, it's very difficult to imagine how a blind person or a person who's is differently abled, right, how they will access your product. So that gave me an opportunity to actually go and sit with from people from that strata of the society and understand the problem they face, right? So, and when we were designing the platform, we have to keep that in mind, right? One is reading through guidelines, the other is how do you do that? So I was fortunate enough to go to Cambridge University, sit with the set of students who are differently abled, understand the problem they face. And back then the technology was not advanced, right? Today, voice based solution, text to speech, speech to text is very normal, right? We just take it for granted. But back then, how do you solve for that? Right, so that was a very interesting problem. I had a fortune of staying in the Cambridge, nearby university, interviewing the students, understanding the challenges they are facing, and then, what are their problems, right? How they will be accessing the product was wonderful. And then subsequently, we launched that product in the 10 universities across the UK, top 10 universities. So it was a big validation of the fact that we have built something which is getting, used at scale, and it is enabling lives of people. So that's one of the most, the product which I built, I'm really proud of. Apart from that, at the start of my career, I got an opportunity to build a supply chain product for Latin America, right? That is, I'm talking about in the era of 2010, 2011. Uh, and when we landed there, right? We as Indians, you always take English as like the default language, to be used when you are traveling internationally. And here I am in the suburbs, in the somewhere in the suburbs of Buenos Aires, which is like capital city of Argentina, and then 150 or 200 kilometers away from there, uh, I'm building product in the workshop floor. That was an FMCG company, and most of the people for whom I have to build the product are speaking in Spanish. None of them understands English, and it's my day zero. Right, I've been given a timeline to build a product. During that time, take the requirements. So I had to learn Spanish, within 2 days, 2 to 3 days, I became fluent in Spanish because that was the need of the hour, right? Because that's how you will be evaluated. That's how your company and everyone whom I'm speaking to is not able to appreciate the fact. Like, and you say like, I thought English was our passport to the world, and here it is not working. So that was another interesting challenge, that their processes, their work culture, on the top of the language is also different, right? So notifications you are building in the system when you're designing that app, has to be in Spanish. So we were using Google Translator, which was not very effective then, right?
Yeah.
So again, working with the local, translators, understanding what they're saying. So building a product which could have been easily built in like 6 weeks took us 6 months. But again, that experience itself was very thrilling, and it was the first experience to understand, like, how non-English speaking world, how do you build product and launch product in those geographies. So these are the two, instances which I can think of where it was like, I was put to stretch.
Really interesting. Really interesting. I think now also we talk about building from India for the world, but then sometimes it is sitting in India building a product for the US. We need to understand the core, because audience is also different, right? And we need to understand what they are thinking, what their behavior is, all of that. So I think that is key. Yeah, how about you?
Okay, so let me so again. So it's something on this again. So we were doing a platform. So I was in retail at that bit of time. I was doing retail products, and so we were doing this platform building, and what we call it product blueprinting is what we call it.
Okay.
Where we could design the whole blueprint of the product, how the product, different platforms and different functional components should look like, and we were designing that product. And we spent like 1.5 months in doing that product blueprinting, and suddenly. We were approximately in October, November, where the BBD have happened, and BBD is like a festival in Flipkart. So BBD has happened, and we have just started our product blueprinting, and now everybody is in a December good era, good time, like the vacations are coming and stuff like that. And I specifically remember at that point of time is the regulation of PM2 which comes into play. Basically, the regulation is that now Flipkart and most of the e-commerce B2C e-commerce players in India operate in that particular mode. Apart from marketplaces, they have their own sellers, and their sellers via transactions sells the product. So that particular play was like because we were building that, so that's where the beauty is. When we start doing this blueprinting came into play, we had this blueprint ready, and the government announces that this particular thing is not going to be valid anymore. You have to have no preferential treatment, or nothing should have happened to the seller of your own platform, and you have to give equal chance to everyone. And that's where the blueprint. So I remember we had the blueprint ready, and we got some X number of engineers, and we have to create this platform from scratch within a month. So the timeline is something like this: by January end, if you don't have this platform, 70% of Flipkart revenue will come down straight away, straight out. And 70% of Flipkart revenue, I'm talking about the era of 2016-17, it's used to be huge.
Right.
A lot of companies don't have that kind of revenue till now. So we were building that particular product, and it's like pretty complex. And again, it's no, we cannot fail, because on 1st of Feb, if your revenue is down by 70%, it's practically that you will stop existing after a couple of months, because there's no product to sell and you have pile of inventory sitting with you, huge amount of losses, and the losses which we speak right now, it will be in multiplier of 10 around those fronts. So that's where the whole idea, when we started doing Blueprint, and I started really appreciating how the Blueprint and the platform building helped really. We were able to, when the things and blocks were so clear, the execution becomes very, very fast. It becomes so fast that within a month we were able to churn out the whole platform, because the functional blueprint were thought out to be so nth way that it was very easy for the engineers and architects to take out that stuff beautifully. And that's where I realized the power of the strategy. When we talk about the platform building we spoke about, right? Yes, you have to give time to that particular platform building and thinking about all the possible set of use cases in future which can potentially happen and disrupt your business by regulators or laws anytime, anywhere. And to be able to churn out on 1st of Feb, I remember specifically 60% of Amazon listings were down. And we were up and running without anything happened. And I guess the Walmart acquisition has just happened, and the Walmart guys were like, how the hell you guys pulled it up? And that's where our product lead at that point of time went and explained the whole blueprint. And they were mesmerized actually. The best part was for me, we were able to mesmerize Walmart, which has been in supply chain industry for almost 40 years of existence, and they were like, how the hell you guys pulled it off? And till still day, when I speak to Amazon guys also, they were also mesmerized, okay, how guys your listings didn't went down and we were down by 60%. So that was another great, at least for me, how the great products can be built and thought out to be very, very, it actually then after that execution becomes very, very simple. And for me, if you think in that perspective, and that's where at least one of the core learnings I have taken, and that's has been expanding ever and ever now to this day, right? So when you talk about a great something very different I'm trying to do, right? When I joined actually EdTech, right, for 2 to 3 months actually I was scared. The primary reason I was scared because you have a lot of lives on your hand. So, and I specifically remember, and to the point which Jay also was mentioning around the team building aspect of it, when I started managing, let's say 2 or 3 people back like 6-7 years back, for me it was like a huge responsibility. And when I compare that time to, let's say, last year, when I had, let's say, have to have thousands of students live in the hand, because if you go wrong in the product building, you are essentially talking about some thousands of students not getting selected.
Right.
And some thousands of students not getting selected, essentially their careers are ruined. And that becomes and that's where it's sort of a little sort of exciting also. You cannot go wrong. And furthermore, sort of scary also. If I go wrong, it's going to be guilt on my conscience also. So that's where both the part, and in between, I guess we have also heard about something around June and July, a lot of suicide cases were happening. And that's where another great thing, what started realizing EdTech can bring to the table, that we actually deployed one of the products in 2 weeks, which actually started saving lives. And that was one of the great things, at least in last 1.5 years of my EdTech journey, something that which I'm really proud of is that particular 2 weeks, to be very honest. In last probably 6.5 months, we have saved more than 1,000 lives. And that's very powerful. A student, you hear, let's say you are sitting and you are hearing that, someone has not there anymore, and that's like a really sad moment in at least in EdTech space. And to the point that now you will not hear those kind of things at least happening. Not any cases still happen in the last 6 months, as far as I know. And approximately, at least I can for sure say we have saved more than 1,000 lives from tech, and that's really powerful. And that's where is what my belief on tech has become more and more and more, that we are actually really saving lives from the whole stress point of view. Furthermore, it's not just about let's say we are saving lives, we are actually improving the life from the perspective that now when I speak to the students, right, they say that the kind of products you guys have created is actually really helping me out. oh, I am able to do things on my own. And that's where last 1 year of journey, and that's where actually for me it's very exciting to work in this particular current space of era, that yes, if I can use the technology the best possible way, especially let's say around AI and Gen AI's perspective, I will able to hear that good news more and more often.
Yeah.
And especially comes out of Google reviews. I have to be very honest. So when we started a Google reviews, that your product doesn't work and this and that, and now the Google reviews are like, hey, oh, this is the product that I wanted. Oh, why you guys didn't give me this product 6 months back? And that's very very calming and assuring. That in the starting of 2 to 3 months, they're like, oh, man, if I go wrong, what is going to happen? So that's where another great thing which has happened in last 1 year for me, and my belief on edtech has grown substantially, from the perspective that yes, technology will for sure change the face of education, and in a very good way, to be very honest.
Right.
So that's another good thing, at least I have been able to do in last 1 year.
I think two things I really want to highlight and appreciate here. One is the power of building the right product, and second is the power of strategizing, thinking, structuring your approach before you really go forward with the execution bit. So I think really appreciate that. How about you, Sonia?
I think for prior problem statements, the work I was doing at Apple was really interesting, because basically we were looking at how can you make health fun, or something that people want to do once a week. Because if you look at it, like, there's many lifestyle diseases. Everyone's aware, India's the diabetes capital of the world. There's so many lifestyle diseases that are growing, and the only way to reverse those or prevent them is to engage with your health on a regular basis, like let's say multiple times a week. So you are taking something and that people don't want to do. People don't really want to eat healthier. Like, surprise, surprise. You don't want to cut out, your biryanis, and you don't want to go to the gym. So you want people to do something they don't want to do, and you want them to do it multiple times a week for, years. And that's what's going to make them healthier. So it's a really hard problem statement. It's a very hard problem because people don't want to do it. Everyone thinks they want to become healthier. That's actually a funny thing about people, right? We have these goals that we set, like, hey, I want to get healthier, I want to get skinnier. That's most people, I want to lose weight. But then the actual day-to-day weekly activity that it takes to get there, people don't want to do that. So I think in Singapore, it was like a great opportunity where the government said, okay, we want to engage our citizens. So we want everybody to become healthier, basically. So the question was not, okay, there's these people who are really fit. Like, if you look at people who use Ultrahuman, those are people who are already interested in being fit. So they already have needs, and you're servicing those needs. We're taking people that are not interested in health at all and trying to get them to care about health, download my app, and then stick to it every week for years. So that, I think, was a really hard problem statement. So where we ended up, me and the design team that I worked with, who were super talented, we thought a lot about, okay, let's not make health just about making you healthy, because that's not enough motivation, apparently. We also added a rewards program, but that's still not enough motivation, because we had a lot of data from rewards programs and people tend to drop off as well. Let's also make it fun. Like, how do we actually make people feel like they're enjoying it and it's something that they're looking forward to? And in those moments where they don't want to go to the gym, where they don't want to finish their 10,000 steps or close their rings for Apple, how do we push them a little bit further? So we looked a lot at game design. So I watched a lot of courses on game design, talked to a lot of people that had designed games in the health space, not in the health space, talked to a lot of coaches, like people, fitness trainers, who motivate their clients every day, and tried to bring some of the learnings from those industries into the app that we eventually built. And yeah, like I said, I'm really proud of that app. I think we had amazing engagement for health, double digits over 2 years, which is very difficult to do in the health space. So that's something I'm really proud of from the past. In terms of now, actually going back to what Jay said about team building, one of the biggest problem statements that we're working on now is, okay, how do we build this team? So One Health is a really different kind of model for India. It's a very different type of model globally as well, because this combination of insurance, clinics, and hospitals, the biggest players in this were built 30 or 40 years ago, before there was technology. So things have changed so much, and we're starting this org from scratch. So what does it mean for us to be a product org? Who are the people that are part of that product org? How do we work with other orgs? I spend a lot of time thinking about our org as a mini product, I would say. So I spend a lot of time on that. And then the other thing we're trying to do like on a more day-to-day basis is, so we have a bunch of clinics in Bangalore. You'll see it in South Bangalore if you drive around. There's now a bunch of Narayana clinics. There'll be more this year. We want to ask ourselves, okay, what can we do that'll help customers come back to us again and again for all of their, health needs, basically. So how can we either deliver an amazing experience, the right price at the right time, the right, support in someone's care journey, so that they feel like, hey, okay, NH is the place that I want to go for anything related to my health. I know that they're going to take care of me. And that's hard because Indians have a lot of fragmented behaviors around health, which I won't get into right now. So yeah, that's something we're actively thinking about.
Understood. Quickly, can you walk me through the user journey of how it looks like if I walk into an NH clinic today?
Yeah. So in some ways we have what is like a classic clinics business, so we have a clinic, there's a bunch of specialties. We have more specialties than a typical clinic, I would say. So, we'll have a bunch of clinics with diabetologists, pediatricians, endocrinologists, a wide variety of services. And it's all in one place, which is convenient for customers. And it's at an NH quality. So NH is known for having extremely high quality doctors, surgeries, everything, the whole stack. So everything's at an NH quality, which is fantastic, including labs, which we have very reliable labs, like, great supply chain for pharmacy. So all of that's there. So that's your kind of typical clinic, but at a very high quality. And maybe like a little more range of services that we provide. On top of that, what we offer right now is a membership basically plan, where if you sign up for the membership, we assign you a general practitioner who's your general practitioner, and you can talk to them anytime for free. So if you want to call them, you want to do a video consult, you want to come in person and meet them, we can facilitate that. You get a care concierge who you can just text to set up that appointment if you want, or for anything. So if you want to check, hey, is this medicine in my clinic? Hey, is this doctor available on this day? Hey, I'm, experiencing like some, negative symptom. What do I do? You can reach out either on the app through our patient assistant for medical questions, or to your assigned care concierge who you can meet in person. That person's assigned to you, who will help you with your questions. So, and then the third thing, of course, is you get a bunch of discounts if you have our membership. So that's definitely something our customers love.
Understood. Really interesting. I think one of the most important questions I wanted to cover today is, was there any pivotal moment or decision in your career that led you to where you are today? Any particular moment that you feel is really that pivotal moment that changed, your career trajectory for the positive? Many a times there is one typically, right? Which is why I think, and that's a unique insight that people talk about in places like a chai ki tapri or like on a mentorship basis, right? So I think, was there one such moment in your career, and if that shaped your career path in product, if you can talk about it? Any such, if there was one, of course.
So again, typically, when I graduated, right, a typical culture which at least I have gone through was that you do 2 years of your, you either go straight out of college to an MBA, or you typically do 2 years of your work and then you go for an MBA.
Yeah.
And that's very typical. Or let's say if you are 3.5 years, then you typically go to do an MBA from some Ivy League college and all those things. And that's where, at least for me, the pivotal, because for me the change was a little different, that just after a year and a half, I actually moved to product management, and then I was thinking, whether I should, because again, typically in India, the degrees matter most. Probably now the things are changing, but at least like 10 years back, that was not the reality. Like, you are good from great college, or the more better career opportunity existed at that point of time. So that's where I guess for me the pivotal change was where I have to really take the call of whether I should keep pursuing this product management as a career, because again, that point of time product management as a career didn't existed, to be very honest, and nobody knew what
it's a bold step. Yeah.
For me it was like I didn't know what is going to happen, or whether I should go for let's say GRE, GMAT, or let's say CAT, right, for going for an MBA or sort. So typically, I think what at least I did back there was what's the trend was happening, at least in career perspective, because I didn't know about much about product management, and there was not much things happening, at least in India, from product management per se. It was a very nascent sort of a thing, and there was still a very boom about consulting or IBs and stuff like that. And most of my, at least my peer batch or my batchmates were either developers settle abroad, or they were doing MBA and becoming consultant and investment bankers, and typically IITs do that. So for me it was like around that particular time something I did an ROI calculation in my head ki, what kind of, let's say, career opportunity loss. When I say ROI, it's not about just money perspective of it, but also in terms of ki, what I'm going to lose in terms of, let's say, 2 years of a learning which might happen in B school. Again, since I have never been to B school, so I'm not very sure. I've only heard ki, great stuff which happens in B school. So not very sure. And then there probably a pivotal moment, I will say ki I took a call when I did my this all the ROI, and again spoke to a lot of chai tapri or mentor mentee sort of places, right, ki whether I should go for an MBA or not. It turns out ki when you think from an experience per se, right, from a experience in college versus an experience in real life, for me the real life experience actually have taught me much more. And the one other reason which I figured out, people go to B school either for career change, I was getting that, or let's say people go to B school for making a lot of contacts, or network is what say. And I was like, yo, I'm getting that also in Flipkart. Unfortunately that happened a lot much better in Flipkart, to be very honest, for me. So that would have been a pivotal moment where I took that, like, no, I don't want to do an MBA, it's okay. Right. The worst which can happen, I will never become a CEO, it's okay. Let me enjoy, because I'm enjoying problem solving, I'm enjoying this work. The baddest could happen ki this goes down the drain after 3-4 years, and I'll go for an MBA, that's okay.
Yeah.
And to be very honest, that's where a lot of people, right, when they come to me, I always kind of advise them ki, just do what you think you're enjoying. The fact that it's okay to fail, and a lot of time it's also okay not to know. It's fine. You will eventually figure it out, or eventually will change. That's totally okay. And in long term, right, in long run, because at the end of the day, a lot of people are, let's say, whether I'm making a right career or not, or whether, again, from a very career perspective, I'm making a good money or not, right? So that again will work out. At least had worked out for me, and people who I have seen around me growing, right, have worked out really well for them also. So just do what you like. Don't be in a hush in my head, I have to follow a trend, or no, I have to do an MBA, let's say, follow a trend, or no, I have to, let's say, do an XYZ things because a trend is happening. But rather just do what you like. Great things can come out from anywhere as long as you love doing that stuff. And it may be entrepreneurship, it can be product management, IB, consulting. None of the things are bad and none of the things are great. It just, once you love it, it becomes great. And that's where is the most pivotal moment. And at least when I see, let's say, almost 10 years back in my career, that's one of the great decisions at least I have taken till now. And I actually had an opportunity of joining Udan also. And that's why I said, no, I am liking product management here. Let me keep pursuing it. And yeah, it worked out really well. So I have been fortunate to work with Sujit and Pradeep and Abhilash and all the folks, right, who are there in Udan and leading Udan to the great heights, right. And when they have at least reached out to me, again, that's where again I will say I said this is what I'm liking it right now. Let me enjoy it.
Yeah.
And that has worked out at least well till now. I don't know, next year anything can happen, can't predict the future, but yeah, I'm hoping for the best, and that's what in my head people should also do.
Thank you for bringing this up, because a lot of people would have these kinds of dilemmas in their head, and thank you for talking about it. A lot of people think about going for an MBA or switching companies, and at that point is when they require such kind of mentorship the most, which is why Jay, why don't you go ahead? I believe there would be multiple pivotal moments, but whichever was the most, let's say, pivotal one, most important one.
Yeah, you are right. I was just thinking through while Shashank was answering the question, and it came like there have been multiple pivotal moments, right? Every time, to put it in a nutshell, every time I shifted job. It has put me in a different orbit altogether because, it was a different problem statement to be solved. The company was different, the stage of the company, right? So now when I look back, I think that, from a bootstrap startup to a startup which is now doing like, 3 billion ARR kind of thing, right? I've seen that, been there, done all. So every time I've made that switch, right, has been pivotal. So yeah, there are multiple pivotal things, but the most impactful was, I would consider, when I decided to come back to India in 2016. Shifted my base from UK to India. It was personally as well as professionally. Personally, I met my partner in India, so that is been the pivot, right? The best pivot I can think of, from a single to now a family man. So yeah, but every job change, to put it in a nutshell, has been a significant pivot in my career.
Thank you for talking about that as well. Sonia, how about you? Was shifting to India?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know everybody would look at my resume and say, hey, it must be the shift to India. But you know what? My friends from college, when I told them I'm moving, they were like, finally, you've told us 4 times that you're moving, and it's finally actually happening. So
Right.
I think actually more than that as a pivot, every time I took a career move, I really thought about, okay, like, what do I want to do outside of everybody else? And putting money aside, like you said, I was like, okay, money will figure itself out. So what motivates me, and where do I want to be in 10 years? And what motivated me to get into technology was I wanted to use technology to help people at scale. And that's what I want to do. That's what I wanted to do when I was 20. That's what I want to do now. And so every career move, I was like, okay, is this getting me closer to helping, uplift other people through technology? And I took decisions where I felt like the answer was yes. So that was every time I've asked myself that, and that's kind of how I've ended up with the transitions that I did, including with this recent transition to NH.
Right, and quickly, can I also talk about you were Forbes 30 under 30 in the consumer tech domain. How does that feel like? Like, how can you talk about that as well?
Yeah, so 2 things that are funny. One is I applied to healthcare. I really wanted to be in healthcare, and they put me into consumer tech. So, but
This is your experience.
yeah, exactly. So I thought it was kind of a funny reflection moment for me. Yeah, I think it's funny because when I was in college, this is like all I wanted. I really wanted to be on these lists, and I wanted to be like thought of as like a young up and comer. And I think a lot of my friends actually had ended up being on 30 under 30, people that I know. And so I that's what I really wanted, was to be recognized in that kind of way, which is like external validation, And then between applying and by the time I got it, I like released that. I was like, you know what? I don't need this. This is like basically inconsequential. I know I'm doing really cool work at Acko. I'm really happy with where I am. I'm so happy I moved to India. This isn't that important anymore. And then it kind of happened. And incidentally, my fiance is also 30 under 30 consumer tech last year. So it was fun for our parents. They were the most excited because like him, his co-founder, like my parents, all of them sent many cakes, and we were just super excited. So I think it was I was more happy for my parents than for me when it happened.
Super interesting. Congratulations for that.
Thanks.
Okay, now shifting back to product management, what's that one skill that you really want in a product manager? Whatever, let's say, a good PM definitely needs that's like totally uncompromisable. Is there one such skill, first of all? Or while you're interviewing, let me put it the other way, while you're interviewing, what's that one skill that you definitely want in the person you're hiring?
I can start because I have an answer to
Yeah.
this. Customer empathy is
Okay.
like my number one thing that I look for. If you can't understand what's really happening and like open your eyes to things that you might not like about yourself, open your eyes to your customers' complaints, the ugly things about your product, it'll be really hard for you to find the real problem, like Shashank was saying.
Got it. Yeah. Jay.
One A and one B. Because for me, no, I have a bias for revenue, right? So if PMs can think through the lens of business, that's what entices me. If you can think about an opportunity in dollar terms, and then how its impact for the business is what drives me. It's probably because I come from a business background. I keep on harping on that because my mind works in the revenue numbers. And the second thing, the ability to get work done, right? That's what, because if you're not able to get work done because it's a highly cross-functional role. You have to get your hands dirty. You have to go across the egos and the titles and positions and just get the work done. So yeah, ability to think through the lenses of revenue and getting the work done is something very important for me.
Wonderful, yeah. Yeah, Shashank.
Yeah, so for me again, so when I speak to anyone, right, it's a sheer love about the problem solving should come out.
Passion.
It's a sheer love.
Yeah.
So I have interviewed a lot of times in colleges. I have interviewed in last 1 year. I have been interviewing like crazy, to be very honest, right? And I've come across a lot of people who will actually depict or showcase ki, yes, we understand problem solving, and they're great. It's not about you will not find the great, but after a certain point of time, I have seen that there is a certain amount of plateau which start happening. Yes, and you rose to a great PM, and I have seen that kind of folks around me. When the sheer love to a problem which start coming, a sheer love to a problem solving, right? They just live into the problem, and I have seen those people grow like exponentially. And that's a very rare quality to find, to be very honest. And you in interview you have to take a lot of time, a lot of compromise. I'm not able to judge that right now, or somehow I'm able to, let's say, mentor or a guide in certain form and shape that I will able to jolt that person and get that sheer love out. But once you figure out, let's say, in an interview, that person has a sheer love to a problem solving, right? That's where you actually find a gem. And for me, that's a quality I always look for.
Yeah.
And again, as I said, it's very rare. And then once you figure that part out, that person will go all out. So I know folks who are living the problem day in, day out while eating. I have got calls like night 12 o'clock, a message in night 2 o'clock that what do you think about this? Like, and in the next day I have to ask them, dude, sleep. It's important.
Okay.
And he's like, yeah, I was dreaming about this. So, and once you get people like this, right, it's just great, because they will go tooth and nail in terms of whether be in execution or sitting with the customers for hours and hours and just understanding the problem. And that's where the sheer love to the problem solving comes into play. You just cannot fake it. It's practically impossible to fake it, no matter how much you are trying to do that. And for these kind of people, they don't care about anything else. They don't care about titles, they don't care about money, and they don't care about whether I'm getting promotion or not promotion, but they just care about I should be able to figure out this problem, and I should be able to solve this great problem. And once you, again, these are one of the most difficult people to all to manage, because once they start getting bored, they will leave like this. They just leave it. So again, but once you get this, you are for dead sure 100% certain that the great products will come out. So for me, that's a quality which I generally try to find it. Again, as close to as you can get, and that reflects in terms of the way they are structuring the problem, or the way they are articulating the problem, or the sheer love to the extent they are talking about the customers or the problem the customers are facing, or the let's say when you ask them very tricky questions, what will you do in this particular thing, they will like, I will leave everything and I will do this sort of a attitude, I go get it sort of an attitude. You will start seeing this in nooks and places when you are giving the problem statement, let's say in a case solving that you are giving an interview. So just for this quality is what I feel for me it's very important.
Right. So people interviewing for Hyperverge, Narayana Health and Allen Digital, your work has just become slightly easier now. Alright, and this episode won't be complete without talking about product leadership. Just to start things on a lighter vein, what's that one most challenging decision that you've taken as a product leader? One of, let's say, any one of the very challenging decisions you've taken. And I'll give you an example. This can be firing people, or let's say restructuring the organization, layoffs and all also, right? So anything of this sort, any challenging decision you've taken.
So again, I was mentioning this also, right? Started happening 6-7 years ago. So if for me, like, problems are easy. They are generally black and white. You either figure out a problem, or you're on the verge of figuring out a problem, and once you figure out, you will be able to solve for it. Yes, your solution might not be bestest in the world, but you will be able, if you are a decent problem solver, you will be able to get it. People are complex.
Yeah.
They're the most complex, and then managing their careers are the most complex. So for me as a product leader, right, one of the most toughest thing is people management, or let's say even stakeholder management, understanding, okay, this works out that for this particular, because when you are room with X number of people, everybody is trying to optimize for their perspectives, and it's not like they're wrong or right, it's they're 100% right in their perspective, and to manage that particular thing, right, in a room of those many folks is one of the, I guess, hardest thing, at least when I do in the day-to-day life, is something that I figure out. Again, you can put the situation in terms of, let's say, talking about the appraisal discussion. It can go as hard as it can, because you know that person has done really well and you want to reward it, but because of XYZ management thinks that you are not able to do that, or let's say it can be a firing scenario, you have to let the person go. So those, and or it can be a very, let's say, hard conversation of, let's say, prioritization, sitting here, oh, I can't do this, and that might be the one of, let's say, you can do only just one thing, right, and that second thing is also the most important thing for the company. So for me, that managing, when you're talking and managing with a person, and make sure that the expectation is well managed, and after, let's say, you're having the conversation, you're leaving the room, you are still able, he is able to reach out to you in a very positive way, or in the same positive way before entering into the room, is the toughest thing in my head.
Understood. Yeah. Jay, how about you?
I'm aligned with what Shashank is saying. Very complex, right? So when you become leader, right, over a period of time, right, starting from ICs to managing the team, there comes a point in a career where you are not just thinking about your next goal per se. It's your team is your product, right? At the end of the day, if they succeed, you succeed. If they fail, even if one of them will fail, you are failed. Right? Because at the end of the day, you have to sit with that individual and give them a valid reason why they are not getting promoted, or why they are not getting the success in this quarter. It's difficult, right? And all the more if you have to let go of people, not because they are inherently bad, but or there's something wrong with them, but every phase of the organization in terms of growth phase will demand a different you as an individual, right? So people who are very good at 0-1 might not fly when the organization is moving from 1 to N. Right, and in that point of time, you have to, kind of take that hard decision and let the individual know that maybe, and it can happen to any one of us, right? Because we are also, at the end of the day, as operators, we are working for our companies. So that, idea of letting go of people, or making them aware that you have to go, or your skills are not, that keeper test, right? But in one of the Lenny's podcast, it was highlighted, keeper test is all about that, right? That how do you have to, you have to let people know that, they are not suited at this point of time. Not that they're doing something wrong. It's just that organization has moved on, and it's a difficult task.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that the hardest thing is working with folks in your team who are struggling, basically. If somebody's at the top of their game, they're doing great, they're feeling great, they're able to commit themselves at work, it's such a joy to work with a team member that way, because you feel happy that they're doing well, and sometimes those folks come back to you, ask you for help, and I'm like, I don't need to give you help. You already know the answer. You just want me to validate it. You please just do what you want to do. So I think that's a joy, but it's really, really hard when a team member is struggling. Maybe something's going on in their personal life. They're not able to commit themselves at work, or like Jay was saying, it's not the right role for them, actually, and they thought it was. And so, how do you help that person, give them an opportunity to to maybe prove you wrong, because sometimes you might be reading the situation incorrectly, but also like help them also understand, okay, they're struggling and something else might be the right decision for them. Maybe in some cases reducing their charter might be the right decision, moving out of product might be the right decision, but whatever they're doing now may not be working.
Right. So helping people shape their paths as well.
Yeah.
Thinking about their growth as well. And really loved one thing you said, Jay, was your team is your product, right? And even Sonia mentioned it at some point. So I think, do you track NPS score within the team also? Do you track NPS within the team members or
Yes.
some kind of feedback rating?
Yes, yes. The thing is that everybody see the again, I see the benchmark has to be same for everyone. See, the rules of the game don't change even if I'm a leader, right? What applies to them applies to me, as I said, right? In my previous thought is that today it's them, tomorrow it's you, right? So the rules of engagement don't change. We have this NPS score. The challenge here is that the meaning of the communication lies in the mind of receiver. These NPS scores, the way they are being conducted, the surveys, that largely from the consulting firms, right, who are not directly associated with the organization. So they have got this particular, standard operating procedure, a set of questions. They will send it out, to the employees, and they are being asked to fill. Now, if you're a mature organization, right, you will have the set of people who understand what it means, right, and in what context it has been asked. In a growing organization, when you've got a lot of young folks, they don't know, right? It all depends upon how has been their day, right? When they're, filing a feedback for you. So yes, we take feedback. It's an indicator, but again, it cannot be the sole yardstick for evaluating your own, position as a leader or anything, as a mentor. So yes, we have got these NPS feedback, the surveys. The challenge is that at what time of the day or the month, your team is filling that survey, because they're under tremendous pressure. And then it's kind of, it's very sorry, but these days that, all these important processes, right, for us to grow as a leader or, for them to grow as, ICs, it is reduced to a check in the box, because somebody has said that you have to take a Gallup survey or you have to take X survey or Y survey to ensure, because it's somebody's KRA in the organization to ensure that all survey forms are filled. The time that is being allotted to fill those surveys, to actually have those conversations, is reducing day by day, because everyone is, dousing the fire on a daily basis.
Yeah. Pretty interesting. I think we were talking about product leadership, and I would want to understand from you, how do you go about setting the culture, the product culture in the organization, right? What do you strive to achieve, and how do you go about it? And what's that one thing in your mind that you think that this is how the processes, the systems in my organization should be set up? This is the kind of product culture that should be set up in my organization. How do you think about that? What's the thought process that goes behind that? And anyone can start.
I guess I can start. So there's two parts to me about product culture. One is, how does your product team work with everybody else, which is something I'm thinking a lot about, because like I mentioned, we're a new product org. And second is, how does your product org actually function? I think those two things are really important to think about together. Like, okay, how should my PM work with everybody else and enable them, and how can they be enabled best as well? So that's, I think, one important thing to think about. In terms of setting up the org, I think being really clear on what the expectations are, whether that's, hey, this is the results you need to drive, this is the way that we should be working, here's the skills I expect you to develop in order to get promoted, for example. That helps people. You don't need to tell them how to do something, but okay, here's kind of what the output is expected, or what the results are expected of you. I think that's very helpful. PMs are usually really motivated people. So like if you give them, hey, this is what your goals should look like, they'll pretty much figure out a path. And then the third thing for me specifically, I'm a very written person. I'm super documented. Like anyone from my team can tell you that I'm very documented. Like I expect like product thinking to be like at least explainable to other people. So that's something I always tell people. Like I'm really dumb, but I can only process a lot of information if you're writing it down. So please help me write it down so that me and everybody else can understand your thinking better, and then take things forward.
Right. On the same note, which tool do you use to document stuff?
Just whatever is there, Microsoft, Google Docs, anything like that. No fancy tools are needed.
Notion and all, some people use, that's why I mentioned.
So I'm not very specific on that. I take notes every day on just the Mac notes pad, just because that's most convenient for me. But yeah.
Yeah, just very quickly, what tools do you use for note taking? Any particular tools for documentation?
So
Notion.
You use, yeah, I remember, yeah.
Notion is widely used in our organization.
Understood. How about you?
So again, I generally use a lot of Google Sheets.
I know.
Sheets I use a lot.
Yes.
Because again, for me, it becomes easier to track, even for making backlogs and all, and putting the structure, it becomes really easy. Again, it gives you cells and multiple combination permutation around it. So for me, it becomes very easy.
Yeah.
And then that structure you can fit in very well across everywhere. So Sheets is what I use, but again, in my org, people are using FigJams. There's a FigJam used for a lot of process flows they create, and again for UX and all, it works out really well.
Yeah.
For the researcher and all, a lot on FigJam. So people use that, and obviously Jira.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Goes without saying.
Yeah, of course.
I was waiting.
And Confluence. Again, Confluence, a great tool. Again, it gives something very similar to Notion. So great tool, and it has a great connectivity with Jira. So that works out really well. So again, these 4 or 5 tools is generally used. Nowadays, luckily, I have started using GPT also a lot. And again, lot of similar tools which are built on GPT. Recently I was coming through one of the tools which actually helps in writing the PRDs.
Okay.
So that probably
Chat PRD, right? Chat PRD
something around it. I don't remember the name. I just recently have got it last week actually, and I'm planning to use it next week. Let's see how it works out. So again, the point is that again, no specific tool as such. Whatever helps in keeping at least you organized. One of the critical things, at least what I want to promote it, at least in my product org, is obviously the first criteria is love of the problem. That goes without saying. You have to love the problem. And for the love of the problem, you have to talk to your stakeholders. And when you're talking to your stakeholders, you have to keep out your biases. It's like, I have to prove a point, or I have to listen also is a point. No, you just go and listen. It can be the bullshit thing that the person might be saying. It can be the worst disrespectful thing that the person might be saying. You are like a black hole. You just sit and observe. That's it. Nothing else you can do at that point of time. And that's where you will develop the shared love for the problem, or rather understand the problem in a great depth. So that's one thing we definitely I promote. And then the next thing which definitely comes out to me is key. So at the end of the day, right, it's not the individual which delivers, it's the team which delivers. And that's where you have to consider everyone in the team. It's not just about, okay, I am, and then there are 4 or 5 people or 10 people reporting into me, that's a team. Or product team is a team. No, it's more around everyone that you are working as a team for you. And then there is an objective which is defined, and you have to live out on the objective, and you have to make sure that your team also lives out the objective. A lot of time what happens is we see developers as like, they are just an execution arm. They are as a part of your team as it can be, and that's where the mutual respect and discussions start to percolate. And whatever is your objective, you have to make sure that your team also kind of delivers on that particular objective, and live and day in and day out on that objective. So that's it's another thing that as a mutual respect and understanding as a team culture that I try to promote within the team. And if you are able to do these 2 things right, automatically the other things start to percolate really well, like what kind of tools they use. You come to a single alignment, this is the tool which will work out well for us, or this is the objective, so everybody is thinking about that per se. When the objectives are very clear, your problems and your stakeholders becomes very clear, and they start to live in there day in and day out. A lot of conflict which generally happens because we are not aligned on the same objective, so that start to happen. Or there can be different perspective, but people generally start to talk in the same language after a certain point of time if they are aligned on the objectives. So that's 2 or 3 things definitely I kind of start to promote. I generally promote in the team to make sure they're gelling up well and they're clear on what they have to deliver. And after that, the sheer love of the problem, if they are having the other capabilities, generally lines up pretty well. So yeah, that's more about it. And the last thing that I definitely try to promote, and that is I think probably some culture part of it, not a culture part of it, I'm not very sure around that, is more around again reading out, have a very open to great stuff which is happening. It's not about, let's say, a simple example. Sonia took the example when she was designing an app for health, she started interviewing the people who were doing the game design.
Correct.
And that has nothing to do with health, to be very honest, right? And that's where the another thing which I definitely try to, or rather have started promoting in the team, that it's not about what's happening in your field, but rather what's best happening out there in the market. It can be very well, like very, very tangential to your work that you are doing, but you can definitely take a lot of learning from it. So that's the last thing which I definitely try to do.
Understood. Got it. How about you, Jay?
So, from a culture perspective, what we do at Hyperverse largely is that we give full autonomy to our product managers, and we have this culture of trust, right? Where we believe that the selection process in Hyperverse is a bit nuanced in the sense the way we get our candidates. Also, they go through a sufficient round of background checks. Different type of interviews at a logical level, at an individual level. So while the process of the selection is quite elaborate, once they are in the organization, our job is largely focused on training them with the tools and the domain where we work in, giving them a boundary conditions to operate, but largely within those boundary conditions, which are largely around ethics and regulatory framework. PMs are given full autonomy and authority to decide on how they want to take the product, because that's the amount of faith as a culture we put on our PMs, right? Rest everything in terms of the ideas, if they want to come up with, if they can do experiments also, they're free to do that. That's one from an autonomy perspective. The second thing what we keep in mind is to have a more and more conversations with the customer to get an immediate feedback, because we are largely bootstrapped as an organization. So our turnaround time to identify the failures has to be as minimal as possible, so that the less and less resources are being consumed and the amount of learning is exponential. So we stress on these 2 factors: autonomy and your proximity to the customer, to work with them and quickly revert and identify what is the next best course of action is something we double down on.
Understood. Great. I think let's move to the almost the last section. Essentially, we want to talk about the product landscape in India. How do you see the product management role shape up over the next 5 to 10 years? And what skills do you think would be most in demand, right? And we've seen this over the last few years, over the last 10 years. Product management as a role has really shaped up, and people have started recognizing the role, right? And especially because of the booming startup scene, right? Companies like Flipkart really emphasized on the role of a product manager. So how do you see this trend shape up in future, and how do you see the role especially shape up in future? Anyone can start, maybe.
The veteran stuff.
Yeah.
He's seen compared to us.
You guys are putting me in a spot, but again, I believe, like, so far again, it varies from organization to organization, the role of the product manager, right? So is it the role or the title, right? There are two different things, right? You can have a title of product manager, but you still will be doing project management, more of a tasking or, kind of work. Again, all due regards to every kind of work, there is dignity in work. So no offense to that. But again, it varies from organization to organization, the kind of role they have, the care for product managers. But going forward, I believe uh, the more and more your ability to understand the business and the economics around it is going to play a lot of role, right? Your ability to have a growth mindset around whatever you do, should mean something, create an impact is a single most quality which will place you apart, from the rest of the cadre. That's your ability to think in terms of revenue. At least that's what I believe. Your ability to think in terms of business impact, because the resources available at your disposal are decreasing day by day, right? How do you make most out of the less input? What is your outcome with less throughput is going to be the deciding factor. And that's where the product management, if you take a step back and look at it around you, the number of product managers are going to reduce, the organization will shrink, and every individual is expected to wear multiple hats. There, your ability to see through the business lenses, your ability to understand what are the company objectives and how you can build on those lines is going to create more impact. At least that's what I believe in.
Understood. Great. Great. Yeah. How about you?
So let me break it into two parts. One is in terms of what kind of competencies that you want to keep, let's say in the future, let's say 5 to 6 years standpoint, and in general, to the point which JS is highlighting, right? How the product manager is going to impact the whole the ecosystem part of it, right? So one on definitely the lines which JS spoke about, right? How the things are going to get impacted in future. That's very important, and that is definitely is going to happen. At time at to the core level, we have, as a product manager, we have to get out of this fanciness we will do cool stuff. We have to start to get our hands dirty and to understand that business aspect of the things, right? And if you see, right, some of the trends like Airbnb trend which is happening, right? Now product managers are being merged into sort of a PMM sort of a role, right? And when you are being merged into PMM sort of a role, right, you are essentially are also responsible for the business, right? And again, probably not a traditional business, but definitely the new age product business that we are talking about, and you are equally responsible for it. Obviously your business metrics, you are responsible for it. So that definitely is going to happen. So you have to become more and more business oriented, because at the end of the day you are helping in running a business. So that is going to definitely happen. And how you are able to do that again lies from the fact that how you are able to understand what business fundamentals of business are actually running at, which is, let's say, probably getting more and more subscriber for the business or something else around it, right? And subscriber means value, and that whole journey keeps on happening. So that's one part of it. So yes, product managers have to start getting a great impact in terms of actually delivering the right value to the business. So that's going to be a definite change which is going to happen. And again, no matter what kind of title which is going to happen in future, be it PMM, what we now are calling it out, or be it a PM or project manager, program manager, the stuff which happens. On the competency front, right, obviously we have to start from a very product manager perspective to start getting the gear of it. So till now, right, let's say last 15 years of era of, let's say, technology. I'll not speak before 2005 because I have less knowledge around it. But 2005 to 2000, let's say 20 or 21 or 22 sort of an era, we were mostly in a very traditional sort of a technology domain, where the things are more workflow dependent. And things are more around creating that automation part of it, right? Automating something, organizing something, right? And that's where product manager brought in a lot of value. But at least for next 10 years per se, right, it is not going to be around that. It's not going to be around you are organizing something. Obviously the Indian ecosystem will still to a large extent will be around that front, because as a whole economy we are still not that. But if you see US, Europe or China sort of an economy, it has way past that. You have to start bringing out now the things which are not just automation per se, which are predictive in nature. Let's say again from a line, so let's say we are talking about AI or those kind of stuff, right? Or something which is not just about organizing the stuff, but actually really start to create the real value for the end consumer. This is something that I couldn't have imagined could have happened before. Not like very doing something traditional to tech-enabled traditional businesses. So that is not going to be. So any PM who is kind of working towards enabling traditional business to a tech-enabled business is going to be resorted to probably a program sort of a task orientation or some executional guy. But the real product manager value will come out to be when you really convert that let's say traditional businesses into tech-fueled businesses. And that's where the real benefits and the things and the competencies around is data. So data is, as everybody is now saying, data is the new oil, right? So data is going to be the new oil, and you have to develop the competencies around how do you understand the data, how you are able to figure out the best meaning out of data. And I'm talking purely about the data science stuff, and or AI, ML, and all those things are built on top of it. So that is going to be the next 5 to 7 years. And if I talk about next another 5 to 10 years further down the line, it will definitely come out to be the perspective that human-centered design on that front. How well humans are able to interact, or how well humans are amalgamated. So there is no right now there is a proper boundary which exists between technology and human, but I feel probably next 10 year, 20 to 15 years, it will be around how well you are able to think about that humans and machines, or humans and technology. There is no like very hard boundary. There is a sort of a permeable boundary. Anytime human can become a machine or machine can become a human. So that sort of stuff will start happening probably 15 years from now. So if a product manager is able to keep up around these lines for next 5-year data, and after that data human-centered design or human-centered your algos and the machines, right, then the product manager will really add the value in the whole ecosystem.
Understood. Really interesting. Yeah. How would you, Sonia? What do you think about the future of product management?
Yeah, so I guess maybe I'll tell a little bit about my reaction to Indian product management when I came from Silicon Valley. So when I first came to India, I saw that there was these two roles. One is product and one is business. And I was like, what is the difference? Like if you look at like a Google or like these big product companies in Silicon Valley, the product is the business, because building search, that is your core product. That's the core thing that you're selling. Now there's enabling functions. So product marketing is an enabling function. Sales is an enabling function. Business development, incredibly critical enabling function. But there's no business, because it's the same thing as product. Product is in charge of revenue. Product is in charge of all your key metrics and just solving problems that are helping you, that are preventing you from making those metrics better. That's it. So actually, when I first came to India, I was like, okay, but what is this business role? I don't understand that. And if there's a business person who's in charge of the business, then what does that leave for product managers, to do? So I see a lot of PMs that don't actually have control over the roadmap, because this business org is the one dictating the roadmap. So that's not great for PMs. The second thing that happens is sometimes the PM is seen as the solutions person. And actually what's happening is that the people who are actually technically skilled to come up with the solution, the engineers, the engineering manager, and most importantly, the designers, are becoming secondary. So the PM is in charge of putting together the solution. These guys are just executing. And what I've seen in the Valley, which is where I hope India gets to everywhere, and I know there's a lot of companies that work in this way, like the ones that are more mature from a product perspective, is that the product manager is in charge of identifying the top problems for the business. The designers are in charge of coming up with the right customer-centric solution, the customer-facing side, and the engineers are a party with the product managers and the designers to bring that to life and even suggest how things can be better from a technology solution point of view. And data is a critical role in guiding those decisions and then making sure that we understand the impact of them. So what I hope happens is that product managers become business owners and that EPDD, engineering, product, data, and design, become a four-legged stool, my last boss used to say, where the four of them are equal parts of the product, of bringing a product to life. That's what I hope happens. But I don't know. There's a lot of markets where it still functions this way, that there's a business person and there's a product person and they work together. But I hope things change.
Super insightful. Yeah, I think very interesting. Okay, I think the last question for today, and would we will not be able to conclude without asking your advice for people who are wanting to make career switches, for people who are deciding on which careers to pursue, right? While taking such critical decisions in your career, what was your thought process? What did you think about? I'm sure it was not random that you must have thought about something, that this is how I need to think about my career transitions, switches, or maybe entering product management, right? So instead of asking you what would be the advice you would give to aspiring PMs, I just want to keep it very generic, and I want to ask you that while making any kind of career decision, how do you think about it, or how would you want people, what would be your advice to people to go about thinking about it, to go about it? Yeah, anyone can start. We always end up asking Jay to start, but why don't
I can start. I can start. So I mentioned before, right, that at every career transition, I asked myself, like, what do I really want to do 10 years from now?
Okay.
And actually, I got this really good advice when I was in college, which was every step in your career should open up doors that you want to open and should close doors that you don't care about. So for me, for example, in this career move, I was like, hey, 10 years from now, I see me making people healthier. That's what now at this point in my career, I know that's what I want to do. I hope it's through technology. And so I wanted to go deeper that direction, and that's the types of doors that I wanted to open, which kind of led me to this opportunity at NH. But yeah, being really clear on what are the doors you want to keep open, where do you want to be in 10 years, and being true to yourself and trying to drown out everything else.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to think about it. What do I want to do 10 years from now? Yeah.
So again, to the right point, right, what exactly I want to achieve out of my life, right? Again, at a lot of times when you are at a nascent stage of, let's say, 20 to 23, you don't care about those stuff, right? And you may not be knowing about it. So switching careers at different junctures can be very different. So let's say if you're fresh out of college, or you're deciding on things that you want to do in a college, or let's say 1 or 2 years out of the college. For me, it's more around how I can grow professionally, where I think my interest lies and where I can learn the most. And yes, I would be happy to work over there without getting frustrated day in and day out. So that's probably the initial part when I talk about this is fresh out of college, recently graduated, or probably 1 or 2 years or 3 years into their careers. So that's for them. As you graduate, right, let's say in your career, 6 years, 7 years, or 10 years, right, it's all becomes that things becomes more and more clear to you. These are the things that I don't like. These are the things which I like. Or rather, this is how I want to shape up my career from next 10-year perspective, right? And that's where, let's say, if someone is trying to switch, probably, let's say, very, very bold moves that people do generally, okay, after 6 or 7 years in this, and I have seen a lot of my known people doing that, after 6 years of manufacturing, they want to move into product management. They do that. And that's where you have to start asking this specific question, irrespective of what field that you choose. Irrespective of what field that you choose, what exactly you want to achieve after 10 years. And it can be a very simple answer that I want to, let's say, start a business of my own. Now, if you have to start a business of your own, what skills that you want to develop over this, let's say, next 4 or 5 years or 10 years or that per se, and how different things are going to help you out. So at the end of the day, what things that you have to achieve, right, after X amount of years, that definitely matters. And how that things is going to get achieved by any career move or any career change that you are doing, being, let's say, being from a developer to product manager, or product manager to a business owner or an entrepreneur, for a matter of fact, right? If you are clear on that front, I don't think so any choice that you are going to do at that point of time would matter, given that it's one of the 10 choices, because those 10 choices are going to lead to you that your final goal.
Understood. Yeah. Yeah, Jay, how do you? What would you think about it?
So the way I look at it is that, any career move, whatever you do, I usually ask these questions to myself, right? And that has worked so far. One is that, is it is this role allow me to grow as an individual and as a professional, right? Is it going to bring a step change in me? Will it make me different from what I was yesterday? Better, from what I was yesterday than, what I'll be in like 10 days from now or a year from now is one important parameter. The second thing is that the most important, considering the first condition is, will I enjoy it? At the end of the day, see, product management is a very demanding role, right? You have to go out of your way to manage a lot of stakeholders, put yourself through the test of launch, and it's very thankless, right? I mean, hardly you will see somebody praising you that, what, you did that. Praises are far and few. The only thing that can keep you going through is your internal motivation and the reason why you want to do it at the first place. Right? Many a times I question myself, what am I doing? Why am I doing that? Like, nobody cares about it or not. But at the end of the day, it's your why, right? It's challenging. It allowed me to grow as an individual, as a professional. And then I have enjoyed the overall process, right? What comes with it. So that's what I have used as as parameters for every role which I have done switch, and it has worked so far. So it will continue to remain so for me as an individual, as a professional.
Right. Really interesting. Again, PM really is a thankless task. Maybe you would conquer. I'm not sure if you think about it that way, but I have heard about this from a lot of people that you need to create the visibility. You need to always be very, very. You need to be at the top of your communication game there as well. Right? Again, thanks a lot. Just before we end the session here, if not product, what's that one field you would be in today? If not product, just I don't need the rationale behind it. Just a quick one word. What would be that one role you would be in if not product? Anyone can, maybe whatever you can think about.
Again, so it's a very tangential thing for me at least, and I guess we were discussing the same thing with my wife recently actually. I feel like, if you are not doing this, what do you think you would be doing?
Yeah.
Exact same question. So for me, I feel like I could explore my probably the artistic side of me. Like I love traveling, I love photography, right? So probably I might be doing something around those lines. And again, that's why I said it's at the end of the day, it gives me the joy.
Yeah.
It's again sheer thing that I don't have to worry about anything, and it's just to keep on doing it. And probably you never know, you make a career out of it, because at the end of the day you just have to love the things that you are doing, right? So, and I guess it's a very cliche that everyone says that, but rarely anyone follows it. So that's where the whole idea. So for me, probably I would have been something around artist. Again, I am a mechanical engineer, right? And I've always loved like AutoCAD drawings and all those stuff. And probably photography and the artistic stuff just happened in that way. So probably, yeah.
Yeah, interesting, very interesting. Non-STEM career option, and really, I don't see a lot of people talking about artistic career options. I've seen people to this question. I've seen people answering, I wanted to be a footballer, and I've seen people answering in India specifically, I wanted to be a cricketer. But art is unique, yeah. How about Sonia? How about you?
So when I was joining McKinsey, the other options that I had on my plate were that I was going to do economics research in Uganda with our economics department at my university, or I had done an internship at Brookings Institution, which is a public policy research place, on the role of policy and governing technology, and they were looking for a full-time hire. So probably would have been public policy researcher or an economist.
Understood. So it was a function of opportunity also. It would have been a function of whatever opportunity you would have gotten.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like I said, I wanted to be in the space of helping people through like kind of systematic solutions. And actually that's what economists and public policy folks do. They come up with, here's a theory of how we can help change people's lives. So yeah.
Understood. Yeah. How about you, Jay?
I had to build things, right? So if not product, I would have built businesses or done something else, but it would have been related to business only, because I like to build things and just hand it off like 0 to 1, and then 1 to n will do, someone else will do that. I like to build things.
Understood. Also because you come from a business family, maybe you would have continued in the same shoes.
That's what I have seen. that's what I've seen, that's what I know, and that's what I do. Yeah.
All right. Thanks a lot, Sonia, Jay, and Shashank, for taking out the time on a Sunday afternoon, traveling from near UB City and traveling from Bilandur and joining us virtually. I think thanks a lot, all three of you. One thing that should make you feel good about this episode and taking out 2 hours today is that a lot of people will benefit out of it. A lot of their career options, whatever choices that they make, right, will be based out of whatever we've discussed today. And it's very, very real. It is as real as it gets, right? Because tomorrow, let's say I release this episode whenever, a lot of people will come to me and say after 1 month after that would be that because of what Shashank said, because of what Sonia said, and because of what Jay said, I made this decision. And that will make me feel happy, and I'll share that with you as well. So that way, it's very, very impactful, and which is what people ask me, why do I do this? I don't get anything out of it, right? That's what makes me feel happy about it. And that's what I've been doing from my college days as well. I was the head of the placements team, and I just did that out of sheer passion. Really enjoyed doing that, and getting new companies, getting people placed. So I think this is in continuation of that. Again, thanks a lot. Thanks to my wonderful friends Aman, Saraf, and Ankur Kosla, who always help me with the setup, with ensuring all the questions are in place, everything is in place, and we reach out to the right guests. So thank you both as well. Thank you all three of you, and look forward to catching up again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure, thanks a lot, man.
Thanks, Jay. Thank you.
Bye.